Hello and welcome to Storytime here at MissionViewfinder. And of course, as always, it's a mission story. I actually just realized a minute ago that this story happened 100 years ago this year, 1921. There was a couple in Sweden. Their names were David and Svea Flood. They had a son who was 2 years old, and they felt God calling them to go as missionaries. And they went to Central Africa. At the time it was called Belgian Congo. And they there joined with another couple, and they worked together. There was a mission post that they had joined, but they felt, these two couples felt the burden to go to a remote village that they'd heard about, to share Jesus with those people. And so they went, and the chief would not let them live in the village because he was afraid that it would anger the gods. And so they went about a half mile up on a hillside outside of the village, and they built a couple of houses, and they lived there. The only interaction they had with the village was an 8-year-old boy who was allowed to come and sell them chickens and eggs. So this was their only interaction. Now, it was Central Africa, and there was malaria and all sorts of different diseases that they had to encounter, and it really kind of took a toll on them physically. But Svea, she had a burden for this young boy who was 8. She said, if we can only interact with one person, let's win him for Jesus. And so she really worked on this boy, and every time he came, she would just be sharing with him, and he accepted Christ. As time went on, the other couple that was with them decided to go back to the mission post. They were really struggling with all the malaria and different sicknesses. So they went back, and that left David and Svea there alone. And then Svea got pregnant, and when it came time to deliver the baby, the chief had compassion, and he let one of the midwives from the village come to help with the delivery. She delivered the baby. It was a baby girl. They named her Ina. And 17 days later, because of the sickness and just the toll on Svea's body, she died. Now for David, that was just too much. It was just all of the difficulties they'd been through, and then to lose his wife on top of that, it was too much. He dug a grave, he buried his wife, put a cross on it, and then took the girl to that other couple that had worked with them. He said, God has taken my wife. I can't take care of this girl. You take her. I'm going back to Sweden. Not only did he leave the mission field, but he left God. He turned his back on God. Well, unfortunately, the couple that he had given Ina to, 8 months later, they both died as well. And so there was another American missionary family there that took her in. They changed her name to Aggie, and a couple years later, they ended up going back to America. So she grew up in America. She went to Bible college. She met a Mr. Durst, and they got married, and they were doing ministry together. And then he ended up taking a position as a head of a Bible college in the Seattle area. And she was amazed to find that there was a lot of people from Scandinavia there. And there was one day she went out to her mailbox, and there was a religious magazine in Swedish in her mailbox. And so she pulled it out. She didn't read Swedish, she'd never been there. And she was looking and looking and looking, just flipping through it. She couldn't understand anything. And then she saw a picture of a white cross with the name Svea Flood. And so she took that magazine and she went down to the college, and there was someone there that she knew was Swedish. And so she gave the magazine and said, read this, I need to know what this is about. And so he said, it's about missionaries who went to Andalera, I don't know if I said that right, Africa. That was the name of the small village they were in. Long ago, a baby was born the young mother died. This was her story. She knew her mother's name. The young mother died. One little African boy was led to Jesus before that. After the whites had all left, the boy, all grown up, finally persuaded the chief to let him build a school in the village. He gradually won all his students to Christ, and the children led their parents to him. Even the chief became a follower of Jesus. Today, there are 600 believers in that village, all because of the sacrifice of David and Svea Flood. Wow, what an amazing story of what happened after they left that country. For their 25th wedding anniversary, Aggie and her husband got to go to Sweden for a vacation. And while they were there, she was able to find her father. He had married and had 4 other children. And so she was talking with, her half siblings, and they said, you can see your father, but don't say God. The rule in the house is never say God. If you do, he will get very, very angry. And so she went in to his room. He was 73 years old, I believe. And she said, "I'm your daughter." And he said, "I'm so sorry for abandoning you." And she said, "It's okay. God took care of me." And he got all stiff. And then he said, "God forgot all of us. Our lives have been like this because of him." He was still bitter and angry at God. And she said, No, I have a wonderful story to tell you." And so she got to tell her father the story of what happened after he left Africa. How that young boy that they had led to Jesus built this school. He had won the children, and there was now 600 people in that village that were believers in Jesus and following Jesus. And that afternoon, that man who had been angry at God for so many years finally came back to God because he heard what happened as a result of his family going to Africa. What an amazing story. We don't always see the fruit right away, or even after a long time. But God is working, and it reminds me of what Jesus said in John chapter 12. He said, "I tell you the truth, unless a kernel of wheat falls into the ground and dies, it remains only a single seed. But if it dies, it produces many seeds." I don't know what God has for your future or my future here on earth, but I know that he has a future for us in heaven. So let's now die to self so that God can make lots of fruit come from our life while we're here. Hope this has been an encouragement to you. Be faithful, even if you don't see results. God bless.